Wall Street did hit some record highs in 2023, and now so is the U.S. national debt, which is not a record high that we want. The national debt just passed a record $34 trillion. It's a number that's so big, so let's put this in perspective. It would mean that every U.S. citizen would have to pay more than $100,000 to cover what the country has borrowed.
Wow.
These debts have been growing for quite some time, but we reached this $34 trillion mark 5 years sooner than the Congressional Budget Office predicted. So in record time. So to make matters even messier, the government could default on its debts if lawmakers don't pass a spending bill soon.
Here to explain all the significance, Gordon Gray. He is the Vice President for Economic Policy at the American Action Forum. Good morning to you, sir. Let's get right to it. Why has our national debt gotten so high?
Well, fundamentally from when that projection was made in 2020, a lot's happened. The most conspicuous change there, of course, is the upwards of $10 trillion that was added to the debt, primarily in response to the pandemic. But a lot else has happened since then as well. And in terms of the debt outlook, the interest rate environment is a completely different world now. Most people haven't really seen interest rates like this in their lifetimes. And this has a significant effect on the debt and on the federal budget. We already had a very large debt portfolio. We added $10 trillion to it, and then the Federal Reserve essentially increased the interest rate on that debt. And so by the end of the 10 years, the 10-year budget outlook, interest on the debt will be the third largest program, short of Medicare and Social Security. It'd be larger than national defense, just paying interest on the debt. And this is just a completely different world. We've never seen debt, at least by the end of the 10 years, it will be larger than what we saw during World War II. It's just a completely different world.
It's incredible to think about that number. It's hard to wrap your mind around 34 trillion, more than 34 trillion. So what does this mean for me? What does this mean for you, the average person just living their life? How does all of this affect us?
Well, in some ways, for folks now, it's been good. And that's because we've essentially convinced ourselves that we can have more government than we're willing to pay for. And, this is something that we've sustained for decades, is essentially living on deficits. But the degree to which we've relied on deficit financing to fund our way of living has gotten untenable. We've never seen sustained deficits this high with unemployment so low. And essentially what we need to do is go on a diet. And nobody likes doing that. And, this is a country fundamentally with an obesity problem. And the budget medicine here is diet and exercise. That's certainly not popular on the campaign trail. It's, not popular with people. People don't want to hear that their taxes are going to go up or the programs that they like are going to get more expensive.
It's not exactly the sexiest political issue to talk about going into campaign season. I guess to play devil's advocate here, so what? 34 trillion seems pretty high, but strong jobs report, low unemployment. The stock market had a big bounce back since the pandemic. I guess what's the problem with paying a little bit of interest, despite the fact that last August the country's credit score dipped from AAA to AA+.
So the problem here is that these deficits at this point are just not sustainable. As you said, the folks who are paying attention to this, Fitch downgraded us most recently, but there have been past downgrades that basically look at the U.S. wherewithal to finance these deficits, and it's increasingly dubious that the U.S. economy can sustain this level of debt. And that's where this problem that everybody talks about becomes real, because then all of us, when interest rates go up, your house gets more expensive, your cars get more expensive. And then eventually the government's going to say, by the way, we're going to have to finally come back and tax you more. And when the debt gets as high as it's planning on going, a lot of people are going to have to pay a lot more taxes.
Is there a breaking point, like a threshold to where, we just go off the cliff, financially speaking?
The problem there is that the United States is uniquely situated. Largest, most dynamic economy in the world. We are also the reserve currency, which means that everybody uses dollars for international transactions, which kind of keeps the currency strong. Problem is, when you test the outer limits, things can change very, very quickly. When people lose faith in an economy, in a country, it's already too late. The changes that we need to make are difficult. Anytime anyone proposes tax increases or spending hikes or spending cuts, people oppose it. And you need to do these things gradually. And we're just running out of time.
So the last time our national debt was at zero, it was a long time ago. It was under the Bill Clinton administration. Is there a feasible path to get back to that point?
So the path to a balanced budget is necessarily a long and gradual one. It is not the task of even 10 years. We're going to see deficits on the order of $2 trillion this year. They're sustained on the order of 6% of GDP. We just don't run deficits that high for this long, and we need to wean ourselves off. And the sizes of the changes we have to make, the tax increases and spending cuts, are bigger than we've really ever done. The largest tax increase that we've ever seen was during World War II. We need to make bigger changes than that.
And you really just don't see the political will on Capitol Hill to address the issue on either side. Gordon Gray, Vice President for Economic Policy at the American Action Forum. Thank you for your time and your insight, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up after the break.